Alright, CNT125 Voice over IP Network Lab. We just got done configuring the switch in the last podcast. We're now moving on to the router. So I just connected my console cable into the router. I'm going to say no, I don't want to use the initial system configuration dialog. We'll finish letting that boot. Again, I'm going to need to create my 3 sub-interfaces. One for VLAN 10, one for VLAN 20, and one for VLAN 1, VLAN 10, VLAN 20. I'll need those 3 sub-interfaces. So we'll get a little bit of a repeat here. So into my router, enable config T. Let's do a host name on this guy. Host name, we'll say voice over IP. I'll do RTR for router. Nice and simple. Now that I have a host name on, we'll need our sub-interfaces. So we're going to go to our Fast Ethernet 00 interface. We're going to say on this guy, interface, Fast Ethernet 0/0. We're going to say no IP address, but we're also going to say no shutdown. So we're going to indicate that we want this port on, but we're not going to put the IP on because we're going to put sub-interfaces on it. So let's now create our 3 sub-interfaces, one for each of the VLANs, VLAN 1, 10, and 20. So interface, Fast Ethernet 0/0.1 for VLAN 1. Let's put a description on. We'll say router, interface, admin, VLAN 1. Something nice and simple. We'll do the encapsulation, .1Q1 for VLAN 1. IP address on this guy, 172.16.0.1, followed by the subnet mask. And that guy is good. Let's do the next sub-interface. We need 10. Let's do the encapsulation on it. Actually, let's do the description. We need this to be router interface PC VLAN 10. Encapsulation .1Q10. IP address, this needs to be 64.1. And again, I'm just looking at my map here. So I have my map handy. Let's do the 20 sub-interface. Description, this needs to be our voice VLAN 20. Encapsulation .1Q20. IP address on this needs to be 128.1. So if I take a peek right now, we should see, here's my 00 interface, and then here should be my 3 sub-interfaces. And I'll take a minute right now, double check 1.1Q1, 172.16.0.1. I'm just double checking that all these numbers look okay. 64.1, 20, 20, 20, 128.1. If I encounter anything, it's best to go back and fix it now. It's best to go back and fix that now. All right, so I have my 3 sub-interfaces done. We now want to create the Dhcp pools for the VLAN 10 and VLAN 20, for the PCs and the phones. Okay, new stuff now, new stuff. So I can do all the Dhcp config, then do the excluded. I prefer to do the excluded first, so I literally right off the bat tell it, don't hand these numbers out, and then as I start configuring this, it might hand stuff out to anything that's connected. So I usually like to do the excluded stuff first, so it doesn't hand out ports that I need to use for things. So config T, I'm going to do my excluded. Let me slide this over a little bit here. There we go. We're going to say IP DHCP excluded. Excluded address 172.16.64.1 space 172.16.64.10. So I'm basically saying those 10 IP addresses don't hand out. Then I'll say IP Dhcp Pull. I just need to give it a name. So I could say PC, I could put desktops. I just need a name in there. The network for this, 172.16.64.0, followed by the subnet mask. Okay, and I'm making sure that's the network number. Okay, followed by the subnet mask. I now need my default router. Default router 172.16.64.1. That's the address of that subinterface. DNS server, we're using 8888. And I need this option 150 IP, and then I plug the IP address in. 172.16.128.1. That is the address of the voice VLAN subinterface is what that is. I'm just pointing it to the voice VLAN. And then I will say exit. There's my first DHCP scope. I'm going to repeat this process for the other side. So I'll use the up arrow here. I can do the excluded 128.1 to 128.10. IP DHCP Pull, I'll say voice. I need the network. So 128.0. I need my default router. 128.1. I need the DNS. And then I need the option 150. This case, it'll stay 128.1 because I want it to be on this network. So there should be my two DHCP scopes. So if I do a show run, these will appear towards the beginning of my config. Here is my two excludeds, and again, I want to make sure that's right. If there's a typo, I would need to fix it now. I need it to show 64.1 to 64.10. If I get that range too large, it might actually not hand out addresses that I need handed out. So I need to make sure that's right. 128.1 to 128.10. If I were to have an error, highlight, copy, put it, go back to your config mode, say no, and then paste that in, and I'll get rid of that line. Just copy the bad line. I'm now going to check my pools, IP DHCP Pull PC. I'm looking at my network, 64.0. I'm looking at the default router, 64.1. I'm looking at the DNS, 8888. And I'm looking to make sure that the option 150 is pointing to the voice VLAN. And again, the option 150 is there to tell anything, hey, if you need phone config, go over there. Go to this network. They have your phone config for you. That's what that's about. My voice VLAN, 128.0, 128.1, 8888, and again, 128.1. So my DHCP scopes look amazing. Alrighty. And there's my sub interfaces. Okay, we're getting there. We're getting there. If you want to, you could do a copy run start at this point, see what you got. I'm going to start in on the telephony config. We need the basic telephony config. Okay. Actually, I think for simplicity, I will do that in the next podcast.